partnerships. So there are a few scriptural references having to do and our harvest in the Presbyterian Baltimore. We go down to Annapolis and beyond south and up toward the Susquehanna River. Workers are few. We've got lots and lots of clergy, but certainly more people. Samuel, 2 Samuel, talks about or a place where God can dwell. And whether that is a traditional church, whether that is a college, are enough places where the Spirit of God can dwell, where the people of God gather. And I really believe that. Within us, that we are the living stones, built up as our work, our ministry to God within ourselves. And then last in Mark, we are going out into the world, and I firmly believe that. A presbytery, a new worshiping community. Sometimes presbyteries are, I have a cousin who's a Lutheran, and she said, man, presbytery is a person, place, a thing. The presbytery. We do have an opportunity to share the gospel. It's exciting. Next, a new worship. Parts. But at the same time, it is rewarding. It's rewarding for our presbyteries to be able to say, we have new worshiping communities. Great for us. 3, a scary. Won't do for our live streamers, but that sound can also be heard in the offices of a presbytery occasionally. The answer, all of the above. All of the above, definitely. So much more for a presbytery. Let's talk about an exciting opportunity. Milton Berle, comedian, opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. It is exciting for presbyteries, believe it or not. Simply because presbyteries I always love it when I'm at a presbytery meeting and people say, well, we would do this, but the presbytery. Or when I visit my churches, we are our presbyteries. And because the presbytery is made up of us, it is an exciting opportunity for all of us. It doesn't come readily. Baltimore Presbytery is lucky enough to have folk, Jen is one, we're going to do this. We're going through. Newcastle, Edwin Estevez built a door. when we have the opportunity. Muhammad Ali, it's allowed. And here's my favorite word in this quote. And it is a both and. Church with a new worshiping community. And we believe we can. And with our funds and believe in ourselves. A scary movie. Okay, so what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? Scared to death of what can happen. And we're the presbytery of the Presbyterian Church USA, and we do it. And just like that slide that Sean did about the difference between a traditional church model, we want something familiar, comfortable, predictable, and but why? Why? In the ivory tower of the third floor of Faith Presbyterian Church. Leadership, both in an organizing leader and in a support. Real competent and dedicated leader, whether they're teaching to find a support team. And that has been a aspect of this worshiping community. And I'll talk a little bit more. What I expect from my support team, and that's not always clear. And for me, it's keeping up the energy. Presbytery, to try to keep up the energy in a tired, shifting people, depending on how you're money, we provide funds. 2, hopefully, supporting them, praying for them. That could be space, that could be and that can also be space in a fellowship hall. I'll talk a little bit about that. This is what presbyteries wish you knew. What if everyone eats me? What if I faint? All right, these are some communities. At the very least, it makes us look good. Okay, we're growing. We're on the cutting edge. Available and affirming and language like that. But we're afraid of, quote, failure. Church, and it didn't launch. It failed. It didn't work. We don't want to say that. Churches. I should have put an elephant graphic right there, because that's another one. And I hear it all the time. Don't get the funds that you're putting in a new church. We have perfectly good doing churches. We hear it. We hear it. And believe it or not, we worry excessively about money. Millions of dollars. And the two presbyteries I serve had and have millions of dollars in the double digits. But it's kind of the way we are. Now, in the Presbytery of Baltimore, our new worshiping communities is under the Commission on Thriving. Inspire and assist congregations, both new and existing, okay, become so spiritually alive in our life together, creatively engaged with the community around us, that people are eager red flag there. Allowing God's vision for God's children to take root and we envision a church that is more of a community, all right, so now we're getting better, and less of with maintenance. Okay, now you're stepping on people's feet here. And more closely attuned, more closely. And less to the memory of the church of the past. All right, so how often do you see that lived out?
Don't say amen to that.
Yeah, you want to get it. We have not gotten there yet. And I appreciate the Presbytery of Baltimore because it means that they're thinking about it. That's a goal. It's a paradigm shift. Because we live in the memory of the church of the past. Existing congregations and thriving reconciling commission. All right? So you go. One, congregation initiates distinct new faith community. All right? And we have a congregation that is that the new faith community is not Presbyterian. You know, that's right. Insert I am in there. And I was sharing with someone that the congregation that started it. So that's an uh-oh moment. All right? Another option. Congregation initiates a new worship community. That's just kind of your typical. All right, we'll take it. Congregation initiates worship in a second place. All right? worshiping community worshiping in the fellowship hall at 4 o'clock, it moves to a totally different location, okay? This is happening, this is live streaming right now in the Presbytery of Baltimore. Of two congregations that are merging. Very interesting stuff. Struggling, and they are going to merge. And then last we have off the ground, and one more that we're looking at that we bought a piece of property. We have a piece of property. Let's look at this again. So definitely the Presbytery of Baltimore developing new worshiping communities. So why is it so hard to get that money? Why is it? Well, many presbyteries operate under perceived or real restrictions. And I'm sitting in a budget meeting. And how much money we have in investments, and it's looking pretty good. And then I'm looking at how much money is allocated okay, it just boggles my mind. It's like, whoa. All right. So $1 billion in investments and funds, but we've only allocated budgetary, then, and if the new worshiping community is going to cost us another $500, okay, we don't have the money because we haven't figured out that the 50 million over here could we haven't gotten that far. All right? Here's one that's real. Limited capacity. Us in presbyteries are experiencing the shrinking volunteer corps. Baltimore is no exception. Command centers for video conferencing so that folk don't have to drive 2.5 hours to a meeting. We've set up GoToMeeting and folks don't sign in. You know, it's just a shrinking volunteer corps. So to get a group of people together to really get excited is tough. It's churches, I mentioned that before. So Baltimore has closed a few churches, and there's some money sitting on the side there. And no sooner did the lock turn snatched up that money and threw it in reserves. And that's what they do. So luckily for us in Baltimore, the Committee on let's have a meeting to talk about how we use funds from closed churches. Can we reinvest those funds for existing churches and new worshiping communities? And guess what? exciting for me to hear. And so that helps take some pressure off the existing churches because they feel like, wow, maybe we'll get some help too. I'd love to hear more about the porch because that's that kind of thing. In Newcastle, we had a congregation that died off. They had an old building, and luckily there was and the trustees and the council had enough vision and spirit funds in the trustees to help them fix it up. Cool. And really the big one is of new worshiping communities as a presbytery. You know, we don't have the knowledge and the understanding of presbyteries just don't bother. Now, what do presbyteries really expect? With truth serum, this is what you would see. The church would have 50 people worshiping within 1 year. So for we have 50 people worshiping. The church would double or triple in size by year 2. That's what we want. The church will be self-sustaining before year 5. Necessary positions will be filled: secretary, music director, custodian, youth director, all those fully paid, board of pensions. Insert traditional building here with large parking lot. Sorry, I'll be honest with you, when people hear new worshiping communities, they're hearing all of those things like Sean's slide of our youth. They're not working in an office park. They're not hearing
and in the first 2 bullets, the expectations.
Because if new church planners can pull that off, what does that mean for the presbytery? They got all these members, they're taking care of it. We can disband our committee. We're free. Next. It's magical thinking, and when it actually happens. Case study. Newcastle Presbytery. I'd say probably about represented, and we wanted to start a new church there. So what worked? We hired a missioner to research the area. Graphic study. I mean, just percent this thick. Right? Then she went out and she interviewed community leaders and church leaders of another denomination. Hi, we want to, could you partner with us? Blah, blah, blah. What's it like? What are the churches like? Over 5 years for funding. So that was pretty good. and that didn't include denominational money that we applied for. Commitment to racial, ethnic diversity. Let's be intentional about starting. Needless to say, it did not get off the ground. About what the goals were. And we, we wanted to grow in this particular area. We had no details. No details. We just wanted it. About what our goals were. What exactly do you mean by racial ethnic? You want black people? What if it's an all-black church? Well, no. What about the economic diversity in that community? Do we want poor and rich people actually? If we wanted 50 people worshiping within a year, and the church double or triple in size, and it'd be self. But if we really wanted the racial ethnic population, most of those folk did not have that kind of cash. So, in that community, we're members of the AME churches and Baptist churches. Their families have been there for generations. It was a low economic. Okay? We didn't realize the challenges in creating racial ethnic diversity. Presbyterians, we want to start a new church. She said the AME pastor looked at her, smiled, was polite, offered her an after-school program or a block party. Listen to that. Confounded, come heck or high water, we're creating a racial ethnic leader. Now, she had some personal problems that but she didn't have any experience and really didn't necessarily have what she ended up with was a community of disgruntled Lutherans. I hope I say PO on the live stream here. And they spent all right, and so that wasn't going to work. She did not have a good Presbyterian wife. Okay, if she did, we might have dealt with the one right above, or we might have looked at it and said, you know what? So here's what I learned, and here's what I think Presbyterian work. And one thing that I'm pushing Thriving person working with a team needs to come to that conference and meet new worshiping community leaders. Stuff, what really goes on, so that we can understand the reality. Enough of that. that starting a church, 50 members the first year, self-sufficient. And be more open to what permission giving and adaptable. I want to be that. Now I'm running into some walls, but I arrived at adaptable. When something isn't working, it's okay. Let's step back. What's going on? What do we need to shift? What do we need to change? It's okay. We need to use our imagination. You know, the church that was established in 1860 doing that now. Why aren't we using our imaginations? We need to promote new. They need to get excited about having new neighbors. Okay, they need to be totally different than what your existing church is. So it's not a threat. It's not competition. It's new neighbors. And kicking and, you know, jumping on us and saying, come on. I'm saying to you, church, I'm doing a new thing. With other colleagues in the Presbyterian. Sometimes there are colleagues out there that have a colleague out, say, here's what I'm trying to do. That colleague may be in my church that might be able to help you with the website. Or I've got some wood to build something for you. You never know the resources out there in the scary movie. Say to your presbytery exec, your worship. Like that parable of the guy knocking on his neighbor's door for bread, and the guy's like, be persistent. Do your research. Okay? Sometimes and they rely on their team to figure it out. So they have no idea. They don't know. You don't know, and they don't know. They're going to default back to get on the presbytery docket, stand up, and share. Enthusiastic you are. We're just in silos. On your presbytery floor or any other kind of thing, online. Questions, comments, concerns.
How many presbyteries have, in some shape or form, participated in 1001 or have been
finding is many of the conversations I'm having they said, gosh, how can we, really support, but we want the money. Or we've got leaders that've got great ideas. Hearing in my groups, I'm a part of a Presbyterian Leader Formation group. It's a 3-year program. And these are some of the things we're talking about. Hey, how do we, what are we going to do? So, daunting a lot of times. And that's why for me, I kind of like but not only because I can coach, but also because and possibly the new person that may be doing our Urbana one. That's a good question.
Yeah, I can't think. You mentioned our presbytery doesn't, I mean, we have a deficit budget and I don't know, do you have any advice on that?
Formation group, I met some new friends from California. And they're just beginning to have, and Sean may know more about this than I do, diverse, some are theologically diverse. Some of the presbyteries in New Jersey one woman serving 2 presbyteries.
Yes, that was Wendy.
Together and have conversations. We're beginning conversations with National CAP. Also, churches part per capita for a number of reasons, some political, some we pool our resources to try something. One model that I dreamed up one day has a partnership with Cuba in the another partner that partners with El partnership with the El together and meet. So if there's an exciting in Ohio can be interested in it. Oh, I have thought about that.
I want to return to Edwin's question and just I guess what I'm wondering is, in your conversations with other execs, us to feel confident to sort of sell it to our presbyteries? Are there two or
Entrepreneurship. Old sales, you know, that could actually building relationships. Someone who is not afraid someone who another tale from Newcastle is we wanted to start a great credentials on paper, but was shy as a mouse. Something, you know, we didn't think of. We did something that I think happens in a lot of racial ethnic Spanish-speaking people. Yeah, we're not even thinking about that. We just want the person who speaks Spanish because you really have to have somebody who has a passion. The team is going to walk with them.
You know, you're thinking about that. The presbytery basically hired someone they liked, and failures are because we're not hiring someone for the community. With the community are those two pieces, and that's the engage, and whether it's geographical or non-geographical. When I came here, Terry's life, and we realized as the Presbytery Committee hired pastors
Great, great, great observation.
This may be grossly unfair, but as you're talking, I feel like for it to be Spanish speaking, we did some demographics.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
You even said we want to start. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. So if
and I think in excited about new ministries. They don't care. You know, they get they only have to hear about that 4 times. My concern has been tough. I mean, just than just a parachute drop. So it's really keeping the energy going on new worshiping communities. Just keep infusing energy into the system and knowledge and experience, and just keep on talking about it over and over again until it becomes part of the DNA. That's my goal.
So, as you're talking about that, and I was just hearing, one of the things that sometimes new worshiping communities and presbyteries begin to wrestle with is structure in itself, just where new worshiping communities fit within this big, because often it's all this other committees, budget, whatever, making those choices. Begin to create space for new worshiping community leadership. An elder or not, to be part of this decision makings for bigger vision, bigger mission. How would you begin to tackle some of those things?
Well, this might get me kicked off the football team, but
Sorry.
I do think sometimes just recently in St. Pete's, we broke off into sort of affinity groups to talk about different issues. And I was in the group that was talking about her presbytery as just kicking her to the curb in her perspective. Some validation from other people saying, yes, that particular presbytery leader was not a fan of there were a couple of us, the exec from New York was with me, and we're like, who's your exec? Yeah, that's right, we're going to But it did teach me that, yes, whoever's in the leadership has a lot of influence about how things are. With 1001, I'm always encouraging them, make some noise. Make as much noise. We can pass it on, and folks know that 1001 is doing good stuff. I'm a big fan of Jay Herbert because they didn't get they got up and said, we have these new worshiping communities. We're doing new to the presbyteries. You don't start then circling the wagons. You go, oh, well, somebody's doing stuff and we're not doing it. We're looking kind of puny, So I always believe in shame-based theology, where somebody can look at it and go, oh, well, I don't want to be the Presbyterian that's not doing anything. So it really the denomination putting out stuff and the denomination putting out positive messages and who I just think so highly of. Somebody's picking it up. Somebody's picking it up and going, cool, what's happening at Riverfront? No, don't turn off your cell phone in church. Don't. She says, I'm talking to my friends. I said, on Christmas Eve, she said, I said, cool. And here's my daughter doing the sermon. she's doing texting, and all of a sudden she's like, and you know, the pastor, you know, and she goes over to the Christmas tree. So I really think that we need to continue, those of us who are New Washington community pastors, Presbyterian leaders, staff, we just need to keep making noise over and over again all the time.
I just to kind of go back to a couple of the themes we've been talking about. Now, the way I've experienced it is on the leaders of to make this work. But if you look at the way like seed grants interesting, if like 1001 or whatever other levels would say, actually on that, and we'll walk with you. We'll help you walk through how to do something and how to look at some. Newcastle's completely revamping the way it functions as a presbytery. So presbyteries are sort of a mission agency that says, okay, what are the missional doing in terms of a new worshiping community? And yet when I'll sit in the room community isn't, or et cetera, even the coolest of them that look like, man, if you could just say, you know, I don't know the answer to that. It work. It's that permission granting that kind of kills it. And think about the way the just the what I've experienced at a besides us taking the initiative and pushing and poking at presbyteries and us, it's like, great, yeah, I'm going to do that. I have to do. And 1001 would say, no, here's an account, and now we're going to report. You know, as opposed to like, hey, come apply for potential money. Now report to us how you're using it, and we'll send Sean. We would probably see a lot more movement coming within presbyteries that are going, we have no 200, $300,000 that they now have to be accountable for. So
That's a great point. That we need to spend money. And we need to spend it, and we need to look at money as seed. Hold on to and justify every tick. Here's $100,000. Go for it and see what happens. You know, it's sowing seeds. And if we do our other homework, like get a good team together, use work, learn about New Worshiping Community, committees, how they work, what's will be ready to put that $100,000 or that $300,000 or $500,000.
It's who we're doing, like, for instance, it's on Gary. In any other
It's on their
business,
t-shirt.
yeah, in any other climate in the world, because the people do not invest on a plan, they invest on a person. And so, you know, for a new worshiping community pastor to be waiting for the presbytery to fund is totally out of, it's not. You go into a community with nothing, you don't even carry your bag, and when you do, you build relationships. That same model has to be applied. You know, like if Gary really wants Leesburg Church to be in there, you know, what is he investing in James? Like schmoozing with James, you know? Because, you know, I mean, part of that, like you can, on your level as Presbytery executive, do so much, but you don't have the bandwidth, you know? We've got to also help train our new church pastors to be smarter. You don't present. Had these conversations, like if I know Sean's on my committee and so that he can get over that before we get to the meeting,
Right.
you know? Letting the committee know that we really, you know, so they are harried, they're overscheduled, it's like the insanity and the stupidity of General Assembly. Anything well. And so therefore, you know, there's no way you can make all these one of many. So how do you schmooze? I mean, that's just got to be a big part of it. Made you do it. You know, I mean, it does. I mean, he would have sent you with nothing.
Past experience for me, and I was in the corporate world for 30 years.
But what happens when you are?
Yeah.